In addiction, so much of our personal identity can be tied into the things we've done, the addictive behaviors we've had.
Hey, hello, everybody out there listening. Welcome back to the Elevate Experience podcast. I am your host, Seth Provencio. And welcome back to the podcast where we talk about Elevate, we talk about recovery, we talk about holistic living, and being better people than we were yesterday and helping as many people as we can along the way. For those of you listening, I have a very special guest with me today, Mr. Greg Fry.
Hello, everybody. Good to be here.
Right on, Mr. Greg. And for those of you who don't know, if you're familiar with Elevate, and our location in Watsonville or the Santa Cruz area, you'd know that Greg Fry is our phase 2 group facilitator for our Elevate full program, which is our 60-day residential inpatient program. During the phase of this, with what Greg really does, which is really cool, is that, with the client experience, you go to treatment, you go to detox, and it's very chill. It's very kind of, hey man, just detox yourself and try to get yourself back on your feet mentally, physically, emotionally, but at a very slow, very cushion landing from the last run that someone gets on before they come into treatment. And then they come into what we call phase 1, where clients are very fresh, right? They're very fresh from wherever they came from and the lifestyles that they came from, and it's kind of a very grounding experience for one to do phase 1, which at Elevate is mindfulness, and we really drill mindful meditation and present moment experiencing and grounding into people who are early in recovery while they're at our program. Once they've done that, and that takes about, I call it about 3 weeks for someone to finish phase 1, they move into phase 2 where they're a little bit more grounded, and then they meet Mr. Greg Fry, right? And at this point in clients' programs, they're rather grounded and more open to diving into what really led them here and asking the big questions of, why I used and what I need to change about myself. They become very self-aware, right? Which is rather fitting for phase 2. The title of that phase is self-awareness. So, Greg, please tell me a bit about your experience with your area of the Elevate program. It's quite an extensive portion of our program, phase 2.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I've worked with clients in all 3 areas, phase 1, phase 2, and then the final phases where they're starting to make plans for the future. And it's interesting, in the beginning, there's a whole lot of just providing structure and figuring out, how things work, and getting themselves grounded, as you said, or acclimated. And then in phase 2, you start asking the deeper questions. A lot of things about. I've been telling clients lately, really pay attention to your internal dialogue, like the way we speak to ourselves, says, so much. And so much in addiction, so much of our personal identity can be tied into the things we've done, the addictive behaviors we've had. And trying to, break that and shape a new identity can be both wonderful and a little intimidating. We did a check-in on personal identity today and kind of where everyone's at with the process. And it's such an interesting thing, because it's something we shape, and we shape through our relationships and, the people we surround us with. And it's something that's constantly changing. And what I love about my experience as a counselor, I feel like I am continually changing and shaping, my identity as I go. So it's so interesting how often, I practice what I preach, or at least I try to
Yes.
practice what I preach. Yeah.
Right on, man. Good answer, and that's kind of exactly what I was about to ask you next, which is, talking about personal identity and in who we are. The cool thing about Elevate is that every person that you deal with when it comes to program delivery is an Elevate alumni, right? Is a graduate of an Elevate program, whether it's our location here or our location in South Lake Tahoe. Everyone you deal with as a client when you're kind of looking for answers is somebody who has answers, right? And who has been through it and who has grown and who has developed their identity. And I want to ask you, like, when clients go to phase 2 and they meet you,
Mm.
who are you to those who are listening? Like, who is Greg Fry? Like, where are you from? How'd you grow up?
Hmm. I'm from the Midwest originally. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri,
Mhm.
and lived there for um, roughly the first half of my life at this point, and then moved to California about 24 years ago or so. So I've been in California for some time now. Um, and I lived in the Bay Area I consider myself, from Oakland at this point. That's where I had, a very long part of my life. And then recently I moved down here to Santa Cruz.
Right on. That 24 years ago, from you being in the Midwest in St. Louis, was it a decision where you're like, man, I'm going to Hollywood, or I'm going to the Golden State. I want sunshine. I want beaches, or what everyone thinks California is. Or
Well, I learned to surf real quick.
oh man, that's cool. Is that why you moved out here?
No, I moved out here. So it's interesting. For a lot of my life, I was a winemaker for most of my life, and that's why I moved to California. Um, and which is very interesting because now I'm a drug and alcohol counselor.
That is very interesting.
Yes, it is. And that's kind of where I was, what I was thinking when I was talking about personal identity. For me, I mean, I really have had to change my personal identity because so much of it was intermeshed with alcohol, and it's fascinating. It's a wonderful thing. New opportunities to shape and define who I am as a person. But again, it can be a little intimidating at times.
Oh, definitely. A winemaker. Is that a sommelier?
Well, a sommelier would be no.
Oh, see, if anyone
I
has
was
the answer to this, it's you.
no. I was the guy getting dirty, crushing grapes, spraying down tanks, covered in wet all day long. Um, it was an
Right on.
interesting part of my life.
That's very interesting. From going to being a winemaker, right, where I would assume that, you know, like say like a mechanic, right? If you're a mechanic, you're at home working on your own car, right?
Mhm.
And your uncle's car and your son's car and your wife's car and all, everyone's car. Like as a winemaker, was there a lot of this? Maybe there is no dumb questions, but was there a lot of alcoholism in that industry?
Uh, for me, there was.
Yeah.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. And it was something I had a relationship with, and it took me a whole lot. When I was in my program, it took a whole lot of convincing, and I remember I remember in my program having a counselor that um, I had basically told me I was in denial, and
Oh wow.
and
That's
I
blunt.
yeah, exactly, and it was the last thing I wanted to hear. I He kind of challenged me on something I had brought up in a group, um, and basically I was my point was I was not going to be told that I needed to get sober. I was no way. That was my decision and mine alone. And he told me I was in denial. And the rest of the day, I was fuming. I was steamed. It was taking up so much space in my head. And at the end of the day, it's still bugging me. And finally, this is as I was a client in the program.
Mhm.
Finally, I'm like going to bed, and I'm like, I just want to get this from causing me internal stress. And finally, I'm like, maybe I'll just try to see it his way. I'll just try it out. And suddenly that started to relieve the stress I was causing myself. Just consider it as an option, and this is sobriety as an option. And then from there, it took me a lot of convincing that I was able to do it, live my life without alcohol. And it for several weeks, I know I didn't quite have the confidence. And then as I started to put things together and started to really enjoy, my life as it was, as I was putting it together, newly in sobriety, I became more and more confident. Suddenly it's like I started making decisions that that put me in the direction of having a good life in recovery. I started looking for things to do to help me out in that way.
That's awesome. It's a real testament to what you've done. We'll have a group of clients, call it 13, right? Show up to a group and we run the group and some people, some things hit, some things land, some things don't land, but a lot must have landed with you, because in different parts of the program, are more accommodating to different individuals from different, walks of life. But then to have you go from that to being someone that I've worked very closely with for as a coworker for about 2 years now, and you being the group facilitator, or the primary counselor for phase 2, a lot must have worked. You've made a lot of decisions and you've grown a lot. The same way that like I think about my own story and coming in from where I came from and becoming, program support supervisor. It's like, yeah, a lot of our identities from where we are, we make these very small decisions, that lead us into really big people, to giants of recovery, to people who guide people, through the very impressionable stages of their rehabilitation journey, right? In inpatient residential, which is rather a big deal. Do you remember? It's funny because I ask myself this question a lot, like doing the role that you do now, when you were a client, somebody else did that role, right? Do you remember from that group, like maybe from your phase 2 experience, something that changed for you or something that clicked for you that you've been able to apply like within your life or push you forward in your recovery?
Let's see. From that time in particular, I like what you mentioned about the little changes we make, and I will stress this to clients a lot. Just making little adjustments to the way we do things, maybe setting small goals for the day, will start to build momentum, and we'll start to put those healthy habits into place, and they will pick up steam, and build from there. And I remember a couple changes I made early on that were they seem so inconsequential, but it started getting the ball rolling. One of which was getting out of bed when I woke up. Every time I would not, hit the snooze button and sleep in. I just started to change my focus to the mornings from the evenings, which was a big change for me in sobriety. So that was huge. Eating a piece of fruit every day. That was another big one, which is a very small thing, but it's something I still do to this day. And from there, I started to make bigger changes to getting my schedule more structured and, showing up on time, not being that guy that was always late and had an excuse.
Right.
Yeah. Things like that, a couple things, led to really good, healthy habits.
That's awesome. And that's one of the things that I admire about you the most is that you show up every day on time, even before I get there. Like I came in today and I was like, oh, there's Greg, already, doing his group notes. Like you're very disciplined with your routine, and it's also cool to work out with you because we have the CrossFit gym and we do CrossFit after work, which is awesome. And you also are regular at, even the local gyms. What is it? CrossFit Watsonville?
CrossFit Watsonville, yeah. which
Yeah,
is
right on.
that's become definitely a big part of my life now. I love going to CrossFit. I go several days a week. And it's fantastic. It's a thrill. It's punishment, and I love it.
Right. You've lost a ton of weight since you started the program. I remember seeing you when you came in, and I'm like, man, this dude's got like a six-pack now and cool tattoos. I'm like, man, who is this guy? Like, where'd Greg go?
I was in pretty bad shape physically when I came in, and I remember wanting to improve my health physically. I remember doing a yoga practice while I was still up in the detox cabin, and I was able to hold a plank, but I was not able to do a push-up. I would collapse.
Yeah.
And that's something I did during my program was sort of keep track of how I was doing week in, week out. And I was always amazed looking back how far I would come in just a week, just keeping that consistency up. And then you start making these positive changes. It was fascinating to watch.
Is it important to keep track like of these things? Because I know in phase 2 you give clients like a graph, right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. We have this score sheet called the daily self-reflection exercise score sheet, which has a whole bunch of things that clients do throughout their day, some of them in their program and some sort of extracurricular things they do on their own. And it's things like fitness, nutrition, participation in groups. What else is on there? Other things you might do, like some creative artistic expression, journaling, reading for pleasure, going for a walk, or nature appreciation, things like that. And you'll give yourself a score for the day and just see how you've done. As you go, keep track of it day by day, and you can kind of monitor your progress. And it's also an incentive to hey, yeah, I'll go take a walk and make that part of my daily routine. Or I'll set goals to read so much every day. Yeah,
Right
that's
on.
fantastic.
Yeah, because you talked about setting goals and the little decisions we make. Like I see the clients from your room walking around with these graphs, and they're like, "Man, look, I scored higher than I did, today than I did yesterday." And these are very specific goals, right? Because I mean, it's something that we try to tell people, to set goals that won't lead you to failure, right? And like the goals from what is it, the daily awareness reflection form are like, don't smoke cigarettes today, right? Everyone in rehabilitation smokes cigarettes, and I mean that's something that we all work on and quit eventually, but some of them are like share at group level, right? Share at group level one response to your question or to a peer's question. Helps with public speaking and confidence building. Like these little decisions add up, until we have people like yourself and myself who are now professionals in this industry, and we started one day, trying to say, okay, I'm gonna talk at group level today, and now look at us, we're on a podcast, we have thousands of listeners, which
I know.
right, it's the basics.
Yeah, getting out of your comfort zone, which here we are.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was doing this until an hour before we started.
Yes. And I
So
said by default of who we are, like what we say is important and holds weight because we really live this.
Yes. Yeah.
And also too, when I think about, who listens to this podcast, or, it could be someone who is, dipping their toes into the idea of possibly wanting rehabilitation, or, maybe someone who's in recovery, or maybe someone who has a loved one that's in recovery. For all of us, even as a person who maybe just wants to learn more about holistic living, it starts with the small things, the small decisions we make every day, compound into big decisions. Um, I tell people a lot about the idea of being the bigger person, right? And being the bigger person is bigger person decisions,
Hmm.
right? It's like, someone looks at you funny in traffic, right? And you're like, "What are you looking at me for, all weird?"
Hmm.
Or someone steps on your sneakers in the supermarket, right? And you're just like, "Oh man," uh, being the bigger person, it's like, I'm going to let that stuff go and I'm going to choose the high road, and bigger person decisions turns us into big people,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? Dependable people in different areas of our lives, you know, um, and that's really good for our own narrative. We talked about the narrative of thoughts that we have going on in your mind. My mind feels like a big hamster wheel. Sometimes there's I don't know who's in there. Sometimes it's not even me,
Yeah.
but yeah, let's talk a bit about that. Like, how do how do you influence, or how do you direct clients towards recovery in phase two of being more self-aware with the Elevate program?
Um, Good question. Good question. A lot of it, paying attention to your internal dialogue, the way we speak to ourselves. Um, we do the mindfulness practice every day, uh, every morning, and it's comes in various places throughout the program. Um, and I will encourage clients to totally just be aware of, what are you thinking right now? What are your thoughts? What are you feeling right now? Um, it- just be aware of those things, and especially with your emotional state. The emotions are such a big part of everything we do. The choices we make, the relationships we have, the way we communicate with others. I like to think of like emotional agility, you know,
Mm,
recognizing that these states don't last forever, and being able to, sometimes you got to tread water, sometimes you got to weather the storm, sometimes you got to manage your stress,
mm.
um, as well as, appreciate the good things. It can be so easy to get defensive, put your guard up. I think we do that very well. Um, Changing things to more of a gratitude, finding gratitude in things, and shifting to a more optimistic approach. Yeah, it takes a bit of work.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hey, hello, everybody out there listening. Welcome back to the Elevate Experience podcast. I am your host, Seth Provencio. And welcome back to the podcast where we talk about Elevate, we talk about recovery, we talk about holistic living, and being better people than we were yesterday and helping as many people as we can along the way. For those of you listening, I have a very special guest with me today, Mr. Greg Fry.
Hello, everybody. Good to be here.
Right
Uh,
on, Mr. Greg. We
mhm.
talk about getting defensive. I remember, I'm sure all of us can relate to, even when your group facilitator, the guy who did your job before you did, said, "Hey, man, you're in denial," right? And you're like, "Oh, you're wrong."
Mhm.
It's easy for us to get defensive, or if someone says, "Hey, maybe you're drinking too much," right? And they say, "No, I'm not drinking too much. I work an honest job," or maybe you need treatment. These are all things that I think as people in recovery, we can get very defensive about, you know. But being brave enough to be willing to get hurt, right?
Mhm.
To be willing to get hurt, to not jump to defense, but to sit with the thing that makes you uncomfortable,
Mhm.
right? Whether it's um, like, maybe I do need to go to treatment. Maybe I do need to be more productive with my life. Maybe I do need to take opportunities to level up and to be more disciplined with who I am. Or, maybe I do need to contact my loved ones more, rebuild different
Mhm.
relationships in my life, right? Uh, there was a good quote I had heard, on mankind's pursuit of truth. he welcomes challenge.
Hmm.
Right. So to go into that group and to say, look, this is who I am, this is where I've been, this is how I see the world. It's our job to challenge people.
Hmm. Yeah, every challenge is an opportunity, and there's often, a lot of conflict that comes with making a big lifestyle change, like uh, recovery from drugs and alcohol, and it's interesting, you mentioned earlier in the podcast, with working with clients, some things will land,
Right.
some things don't necessarily seem to fall flat a little bit.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting, especially working with this clients in the middle part of their program, um, is, some things, I think of it as like planting seeds. Sometimes you think something doesn't land very well or falls kind of flat, but I've noticed frequently that in the days or weeks to come, suddenly clients are putting that into practice. Something that happened, after the moment, after the group or whatever, they've been thinking about it, and they'll start putting that piece together, for themselves. And it's really interesting seeing them develop as they move through the program. So the place I'm working with clients at right now is often the transitional place.
Mm. They transition from where to where?
From it depends on the client, and um, it's often a whole lot of uncertainty to self-confidence,
Mhm.
hmm and starting to put things into practice, and they start taking things into their own hands as far as the recovery goes, which is ultimately, it's going to be their life that they're setting up once they leave the program after they graduate.
Right. It's cool too also to see um, people's plans with what they want to do after treatment change throughout their treatment journey.
Hmm.
Um, we give people the day they get to detox, we give them an exit strategy. They say, "Why are you
Hmm.
giving somebody exit paperwork? What do you want to do when you leave day one?" Well, it's a healthy place that we have to, a realistic goal we have to set for ourselves is like, what does it look like when we transition from treatment to back to society,
Hmm.
right? And right now, I'm covering as the phase one group facilitator or the group counselor, and I'll be doing this for the next couple of months. I mean, I love it, right?
Hmm.
But I see people's exit strategies, and they say, "Oh, I'm going to go back to working at the bar, or I'm going to go back to the restaurant
Hmm.
business, or I'm going to go back to my toxically codependent, also using partner,
Hmm.
right? And I'm going to go back to I'll figure it out, right? I remember even when I first got to treatment, I said, well, I'm going to go back to construction and seasonal temp labor, and get myself a hotel room and then go from there,
Hmm.
and I have a job within a week, and right, and now here I am, right, as your podcast host and also one of the program supervisors Elevate, and here you are as someone who came from winemaking to also being a group counselor and a recovery guidance person for, I mean, lots of people,
Hmm.
you know. It's cool to see people's plans change. Did your plans ever change?
Um, well, my plan was originally, I knew I was not going back to winemaking. I knew I did not have a future in that. Um, but had no intention of going into substance abuse counseling as a career for myself. I kind of took a chance, and it happened during my program. I remember, before coming into Elevate, I was isolating a whole bunch. I was really to the extent that loneliness was a big driving factor in my addiction, and I knew that had to change. Um, and it happened early on in my program. I decided, you know, I I want to look into staying at Elevate and becoming staff, I kind of had the idea of being a counselor in the back of my head. I didn't know if it was possible. Probably didn't think it was possible at the time, or didn't see how to get from here to there. Um, but I had this idea of, I want to take interest in people, I want to take that loneliness out of my life. So that was kind of where I started on this path, was having a job where I helped people.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, the isolation of our use, is a very common thread
Hmm.
amongst people who have suffered with chemical dependency and, are seeking help. It's like we're afraid, right? Um, in isolation, there's no disappointments because there's no people. You're totally in control, even though we're in control of nothing, right? We are in control of that nothing,
Ah,
and when you let people in, or we had people in, at one point in time, it's like, it's so hard to deal with somebody who's struggling, because everyone struggles in life, sober, not sober, in recovery, not in recovery. But here you have, people when you come to treatment at somewhere like Elevate, you have someone like Greg or myself who is like, hey, I enjoy the human connection. I mean,
hmm.
I just want to help. I just want to help because it feels good to help.
It does. It does. Yeah, it's very rewarding. Um, and very challenging at the same time.
Oh yeah.
It's so funny. We practice mindfulness every day, and
Mhm.
I, um, I'm a planner, and I like to have things ordered and structured, and that's, something I try to do. Like you said, I show up every day. I'm on time. I like to um, be on top of my shit, basically.
Right.
And and it's so funny when there's such a human element to what we do. It's almost ridiculous sometimes trying to plan out your day, because you have to be there, you have to be present, you have to be fully yourself and authentic with clients that need you.
Mhm.
So there's a whole lot of stuff I can't plan, and I just gotta roll with it.
Yeah.
So it's both, having that structure, as well as being able to be versatile.
Yeah, to be versatile in recovery, do you think that it's like that's important to do? Because, you know, when we think about making major life changes, like career change, maybe removing substances from your life, removing substances like alcohol or drugs isn't just removing alcohol and drugs, right? You remove friends who are not healthy to that.
Mhm.
You remove workplaces that are not healthy to that. You remove partners who are not healthy to that. It's like it's very difficult to, because there's a lot of change in all these areas of our lives, like, and being able to adapt to being able to meet new people and find new hobbies and go to meetings. I mean, Elevate even has, I think, a smart meeting in Aptos now, right?
That's
Yeah, so like, to go out and find meetings, whether it's a smart meeting or a 12-step meeting or anything like that, it takes a lot of courage to just put yourself out there, you know? Or maybe you have a loved one who's drinking, right? And you say, or using, and you say, and you go to them, you say, "Hey, look, like let's go to them. Let me take you to a meeting." I remember my mom used to take me to meetings, God bless her.
hmm.
She'd take me to meetings, and because I'd crash my car, drinking and using, and again, I mean, I've been in more motor vehicle wrecks than I care to elaborate on,
Hmm.
right? But um, the people that support you, like, maybe someone listens to this podcast and they're like, hey, like, I'm going to ask my mom or ask my son or ask my, wife, "Hey, let's go to a meeting, let's put ourselves out there, right? Or let's think about recovery. Let's talk about recovery. You know, it's rather, there's a lot of bravery and a lot of courage that goes with that. Because yeah, like you said, like, some people are going to fight you, when you bring up stuff like that, or they're going to disagree. But
Hmm.
I think at everyone's most authentic self. If you say, hey, look, let's live better, let's live healthier, the last thing on their mind before they go to bed is like, maybe I should live, maybe I should be better. Maybe I should try to be better or make decisions to be more healthier, to die older, right? To live longer, to be stronger, you know?
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned seeing people's plans change throughout their program, and um, how often I won't necessarily push clients too far that are in the early on if they have those decisions like going back to bartending, things like that.
Mhm.
I will often tell them, be open to considering other options for yourself. And very frequently, you will see once they've made that decision that they want to be successful in recovery, they will make those decisions for themselves, start setting themselves up for success.
Right. And that's awesome, and a big part of that is, the treatment delivery. Who is your group facilitator? Who is your counselor? Like who are these people? And being in recovery and also being there for, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people every year to give a piece of ourselves. We stay on point with our recovery, because we came in the same way each and every client comes in, you know. What are some things that you do to work on your recovery? Because if clients are get to recovery and they see us as men or as people in recovery, and they say, I don't want anything that guy's selling, like if someone's sad or has it just struggles with things all the time. Like, I mean, you make it look easy doing what you do, and clients are always talking about like how much fun they're having or what they're learning in your group. What are things that you do to maintain your own recovery?
Yeah, thanks for that. And yeah, I definitely try to keep it fun. You gotta have fun in sobriety,
Right
otherwise
on.
it just won't work. Part of it's balancing structure with spontaneity is important for me, but spontaneity can only happen for me if I have a certain amount of structure. Um, and going out and doing fun things, whether it's going to a hike or a Renaissance fair or just going out seeing a movie, surfing, going to the beach, enjoying natural beauty, things like that. And also setting life goals. I'm working on. I'm back in school for counseling now,
Right
and
on.
like learning stuff that is applicable to me on a daily basis, and seeing myself grow in that way. It's wonderful, really accomplishing life goals and having fun while I'm doing it.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Um, because like, yeah, you go there with a smile and you show up on time, and you're always there. If a client wants to talk, after a group, you never tell a client, oh, it's my break,
Oh no.
like get away from me, right? Like, I mean, we have fun doing this, and then, to maintain our own sanity, our own recoveries, it's like, doing, the hiking and the working out and the setting the goals and stuff like that. Like, is that stuff that like you were able to kind of get from Elevate? Because we try to give clients that same experience. I know you took these guys on what was it, a beach trip the other day?
Yes, I didn't go myself,
Oh
but
yeah.
yeah, but beach trips, and we do hiking trips as well, rewards trips with clients, and those are, some of the best times. Getting just getting away for a bit, and relaxing for a day, and there's so much laughter and fun on those trips, and that's a big part of it. Finding ways to have fun in recovery, laugh in a genuine way. It's so huge.
Yeah, man. And real connection. Because I mean, we've done the beach trips and the hiking trips, yourself and myself. We've ran these together, these
Mhm.
groups together in the past. And it's like, it's funny because clients will start walking up the mountains, they'll be like, man, I should probably quit smoking.
No, yeah.
Every
Uh-huh.
time. It's like as soon as we start going on an incline, I'm like, oh man, someone's about to make a comment that they shouldn't be smoking,
Mhm.
yeah, it's like, we try to live healthier, and we try to show them a good example of what it is to be healthy in recovery by working on ourselves.
Mhm.
Next Friday, CrossFit competition. I know you're going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah, we host a CrossFit competition. We have a gym on site, which is, I mean, to me, that's like when I think about what I do for my recovery, like you said, the more structure you have, like the more freedom you have to be spontaneous.
Absolutely.
The other day I woke up and I was like, I'm gonna run a half marathon today. And I did, but it's only
Wow.
yeah, right. And I said 3 days later I'm gonna do it again, and I did, and it's only because like during the week, after my, CrossFit workout after work, I go home and I jog 4 or 5 miles,
Wow.
and I said, and that's to me, it's like mandatory, so doing that every day, the recovery work allows us to really make big, cool things, like big, cool trips.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know you travel.
Yeah.
Where are you going? Aren't you going somewhere next week?
Yes, I'm going down to visit my daughter in LA.
Right on,
Mm-hmm.
man.
Yeah.
What do you guys do out there?
We don't have anything planned. We're just going to, see what happens, spend a few days together.
That's
Yeah.
cool, man.
Uh-huh.
That's awesome, man.
Definitely.
You know, um, family's important, and
Absolutely.
it's like I remember, like when I was drinking and using the way that I was, I wasn't really in the best contact with them,
Hmm.
and but getting sober, I mean, man, I love seeing these guys, and my brother and my mom and my dad, and they're just happy people, and yeah, like we have just so much to be grateful for,
Hmm.
in spending time with our family, and it feels really good to just give it back. We were talking about like social rehabilitation,
Hmm.
like what are some things that you do like socially that like
It's interesting though. So much of my days off and stuff are self-care. Um, whether it's taking care of things like, laundry, cooking meals for myself. I do a lot of cooking. Um, but there are so many, I'm around so many people all the time. Um, it's like I take that time to be alone. My alone time is very important, so I often do that. Um, on the days I'm not working. Um, and I will be very happy just going around doing my errands throughout the day. Um, Cooking, like I said, is a big it's a big thing for me. I love to do.
that's really rad, like to have like different hobbies and stuff like that. Like, I mean, I know that you make a mean plate of spaghetti and meatballs.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right.
That's
Uh-huh.
still something that I'm trying to work on. I wish I could say that I was a good cook, but here we are cooking up recovery and cooking up podcasts today.
Yep.
Right on, man. And I mean, like, and today's a good day for us here. We have graduation, which
Oh
is a
yeah.
ceremony. We have all the clients who finish their program come up and give a speech, and these are all available just about on YouTube. So
Hmm.
sometimes it's good to watch. So you say like, hey, like, what is it? What is Elevate? Like, what do our clients look and sound like? Like, who are these people? Because you think about treatment, right? If you're not familiar with it, or if you're an outsider, I remember getting to this argument many times before I've actually went to treatment, with my family when they were trying to help me out, saying, oh, you want to send me to the nut house? You know what I mean? You want to take away my shoelaces and put me in a
Uh-huh.
straitjacket for a couple of days? Like, no, I ain't gonna do that. Not this time,
Hmm.
but we're real people, we live real lives, and there's real connections and real recovery going on here, and it's something very special. So we're gonna have that today, and that's something that I always look forward to because me being their phase one guy, you being their phase two guy, and
Hmm.
and I think Dana Smith is now going to be our phase three.
Yes.
Right
Yeah.
on. So we're always training people and putting people on the roster to make sure all of our bases are covered as far as treatment delivery. But to see these people who start and make these little changes, right?
Hmm.
First, it's like, okay, I'm not going to smoke dope today, or I'm not
Hmm.
going to think about leaving or hurting myself today,
Hmm.
right? Or because you think about the narrative that clients have when they're in detox. Oh man, and how that
Hmm.
changes and how that evolves and how we facilitate that. It's so cool to watch them at the end of it, where they're like, thank you. I've rebuilt my relationships. I have all these goals for my future. I've learned, how to work out and do yoga, and I've made tons of friends. I mean, I'm just excited for that today.
Yeah, and it's great. I love graduations. I love hearing clients put into their own words what they have learned, how they've grown, how they see themselves now. Um, it's amazing. I always learn something new in graduation. It always surprises me, and it's wonderful hearing clients speak about their journey and what they've accomplished in a very short amount of time.
Right. Right. And then it's it is cool, and that, it's something that we do, and that's something that we offer,
Hmm.
like we offer to the world. Like anybody who wants to come out here, can call up our admissions and say, hey, like, can I get out here? Do I have the means to get out here, to elevate here in California? Like, and who knows, like it's a good conversation to begin, to say, look, okay, maybe I need treatment, and if I was to go to treatment, this is where I want to go, because I mean, I'm glad that you've agreed to come on as one of our guests.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure.
You
This has been fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Uh-huh.
Like I've had a great time. I know that you're very insightful, and I'm just the most happiest person I could ever be to call you a coworker and a friend.
Thanks, huh?
And as a brother in this, right? Because
Hmm.
we really are trying to make an impact, on people who need direction. Right?
Hmm.
It's like a personal thing for us to do. So I've enjoyed having you come on here, and I'm sure that all of our listeners enjoyed that too. Do you have any closing remarks to how things are going?
No, this has been fun. Like I said, this was unplanned. I didn't know it was coming on until about an hour before this podcast happened. And it's great to get out of my comfort zone a little bit. Yeah, take a chance.
Yeah, again, like, there's this stigma around people that use or drink, and it takes a lot of bravery to come up here and say, hey, look, uh, I'm in recovery, I work in recovery, and it's important to me, and this is why it is.
Hmm. We talk about vulnerability a lot, and taking a chance and putting yourself out there and breaking down those defense mechanisms. And that's often what's keeping us stuck is not taking a chance. So I really appreciate the opportunity, to come on here and do that for myself today.
Right on, Greg.
Mhm.
And if you guys are listening, and if you want more information about Elevate Addiction Services, or who we are, our mission, our message, what makes us different, you could find these things on Google. You could just Google Elevate Addiction Services Santa Cruz, and you'll see our beautiful facility. And you can see meet the staff on our page and say, okay, cool. If you have questions, you can always call in, and one of our representatives will be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. So to all of those of you who are listening, thanks for tuning in, and I'll be seeing you guys next time. Stay focused on yourself, stay being better than you were before, and long live recovery.